Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to the session today. My name is Ruth Nanjala. I serve as the Vice President for the African Society here in Oxford University. And today we're gonna be having the scholarship info session for the Afrisoc Mentorship Scheme. Uh, we have two moderators for this conversation. We have Dr. Uchena, who's doing a PhD in population health, and we have Anita, who's doing a master's in international health and tropical medicine. So I will pass it over to Uchena to start this conversation. Welcome all.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ruth, for the introduction. Hi, everyone. My name is Uchen Nagwacham, and like she mentioned, I am a DPhil student, finally a DPhil student in population health, and we are very pleased to be having this conversation with every one of us today. Just for a start, I know many people who are probably on this call, and it's difficult for me to assess how many people are actually online now. Chimwemwe, can you give me an idea of the number of people online, just so we know at what pace we're moving? Okay, so we have about 90 persons online. That's great. So we'll just get right into it, and the rest of the people can join us when they meet us, or they just watch the recording much later. So I think I'm going to start by sharing a thought. Very many times I've gotten questions around, oh, you're in Oxford University. How did you go about it? And I know that's partly the question that has brought many of us that have logged in online today. And personally, if I was start by sharing my own personal story, I had that same contemplation you're probably having right now, wondering, oh, is it really worth it? If I apply, are they going to take me? What exactly does Oxford consider? And but thankfully, I had people that were within, two of them actually were also within Afrisoc. And they didn't 100% make my application happen. I had to do my own work as well. But I'm very, very thankful for the support I got in the application process. And it doesn't mean it's going to be a walk in the park. It's quite competitive, but that does not mean that you cannot get in. We will talk about the general procedures for application into Oxford. We had a bit of time to look at some of the questions that some of you have sent into the panelists. And it is clear from some of the questions that a good number of us still don't know the right channels, like the main university link from where you start looking at in terms of, what the available courses are, what the departments are, and for those applying for a PhD, what the PhD programs that they have in the university are. And we will share those links today, and we will have the conversations around all the many questions that you have raised. Myself and Anita will be doing the moderation, while the rest of the people that are online on the panel will be speaking to us about different scholarships. They will tell us how exactly this does work in the scholarship where they are affiliated. And after that, we're going to go through some of the questions that you have sent in. And after we look at those questions, we will then take other questions that you may have online. So if you have questions online, please do feel free to type it out on the YouTube chat. Someone is actually monitoring those questions, and we collate them, and we will put that across to the panelists very soon. So yeah, I am one of those that had that initial, oh, Oxford will never take me. I don't think I'm good enough. But I'm wondering what the experience was for you, Anita. You're a very smart kid. I'm sure that's, it was a no-brainer for you. What was the experience of application for you, Anita?
I like the vote of confidence. But yeah, so I've actually applied to Oxford twice. I've gotten in twice, but there's a reason I didn't come in the first time. And it's why I'm very passionate about doing such forums. So I applied the first time in 2021, and I got admission to start in 2022. But by the time I was applying, I did not have sufficient information on how to approach scholarship applications. And so I applied to the school first, and by the time I got admission, most of the scholarships were closed. And by the time I was getting all this information, it was too late. So I had to decline my offer and apply afresh. And now that's why I'm here right now. And so for me, it's a story of I wish I had this such forums and exposure to such information, because I would have planned my time better. I would have planned my application better. And I'm glad that we're doing it this webinar right now, because it's quite early and applications are open for most Oxford scholarships. And so applicants have a really good chance of getting funding if they want to start their studies next year or whichever year they choose to apply. Yeah, so, oh, did I say who I am? I'm Anita, as just mentioned. I'm a master's student. I'm doing the International Health and Tropical Medicine course. And I'm very happy to be doing this today with Uchenna. And we have a panel of about 6 scholars. And I would like each of our scholars, I think some of them are joining soon. If you could just say your name, the course you're studying, and the scholarship you're on as we go around. Just your name, your scholarship, and your course. Thank you. I think we will start with Dr. Francis.
Hello, everyone. My name is Francis Ayomo. I'm a third going to fourth year DPhil student in primary healthcare here at the University of Oxford. And I'm also a Commonwealth scholar. So happy to share with you perspectives about Commonwealth scholarships and broadly speak about scholarship applications in general. Thank you.
Thank you, Francis. Happy to have you here to answer questions about Commonwealth. Next, we have Mashood.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Mashood Audu. I'm from Nigeria. I'm studying the 1+1 MBA here at the University of Oxford. The 1+1 MBA is a combination of international health and tropical medicine and MBA. I'm a Pershing Square scholar. I'm happy to be here and to be discussing some information around the application and the scholarship with everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Mashood. I'm glad you're here because we actually had some questions about how to get funding for 2 masters and if that's possible. So we'll get into that later. And then we have Mwangi.
Thank you, Anita, and hi, everyone. My name is Mwangi Mwada. I'm from Kenya. I'm a Rhodes Scholar for 2023, so I just started my course. I'm doing the MSc in Nature, Society, and Environmental Governance, which is in the Geography Department. Such about food. Happy to be here and be in conversation with everyone. Hoping to for myself and others. Thank you.
Thank you, Mwangi, representing Rhodes. And then we have Phil.
Thank you very much, Anita. Hi, guys. And I'm sure, Anita, you know why I haven't switched my videos yet, but I'll be switching it on soon. My name is Phil Chigia. I am a BITE scholar studying international health and tropical medicine. Yeah, happy to share insights because I was in the same place a couple of years ago.
Thank you, Phil. I appreciate you joining the call where you're still on your way. So our class extended, but we're here now. And then next we have Patricia.
Hi, Anita. Hi, everyone. Sorry, Anita, I can't have my camera on right now, but I'm from Kenya, and I'm in Oxford pursuing my Master's of Science in Environmental Change and Management through the Mastercard AFOC Scholarship, and I'm looking forward to discussions here. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia, representing Mastercard AFOX. And then we have one last scholar, Clifford. He's a Chevening scholar, but he was part of the people whose class ended a few minutes ago. So he will be joining us in a few minutes. So I'll have him introduce himself when he joins. And back to you, Uchenna.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, to every member of the panel for joining us. I think one question that does cut across for many of the questions that we have received from intending participants, or rather aspiring Oxford students, is around where or how exactly do you go about the applications and how do you go about securing the scholarships. I'm not sure how we're able to share the link for the main Chimwemwe. I'm sure you have this link. So if you're able to, please share it on the YouTube page. The link that gets you on the main application page, the general university application page that has the list of departments and the list of everything. I remember seeing that on your LinkedIn page, so I'm sure you have access to that link. If you could please help us share that on YouTube. Thank you so much. So essentially, just so that each of the scholars don't get to talk about the same thing, we'll just lean into that a bit. So essentially, you go to the link that Chimwemwe is going to share and look at all the available departments. Oxford is really big and will be very different from most of the universities you know back in your country. This is one of the most confusing things I found about Oxford when I was trying to apply. So I'm a medical doctor by background, and I studied, I did a master's in public health, and then I was looking for a public health project that I will work on for my PhD. I know this is different for the master's, and maybe Anita will speak a bit to that. So for the PhD, you need to first of all find a supervisor. It's not like the master's program that you just see what you like and you apply. For the PhD, you need to find a supervisor. So you need to write to different supervisors, and then if anyone decides to then work with you, both of you will co-develop your project. And after you've developed the project, you can then apply for the PhD. And then what then differs is how the scholarship. So depending on what scholarship that you're hoping to get. Let me just answer this question because I know that cuts across as well. So the priority applications, the first deadline that is given for Oxford, for every student that does apply before the first deadline, that's in my department, the timelines might differ for different departments, but for my department, for population health department, and most of medical sciences division, that will be 7th of December. So for everybody that has applied before the 7th of December, and if you're doing a PhD, that means you would have secured a supervisor, agreed with your supervisor what you're working on, and then you have drafted your proposal. And with the proposal, you're then able to submit your application. So you should have done all of that before the 7th of December. So if you're thinking of a DPhil and you have not yet reached out to supervisors, that means like your time is really already ticking. And for everybody who has submitted by that deadline, you're automatically considered for a scholarship. If you there are certain boxes that you need to check when you are doing the application. So you're not sort of applying for a different scholarship. So, but there are other scholarships that has its own peculiarities, and those scholarships, they're represented here on this panel, and they're going to speak to that. But what I've just spoken to is the general application as it applies to a PhD. So for a PhD, you need to first of all find a supervisor, work with the supervisor to develop your project, and with the project, you're then able to make your application. And if you submit before the first deadline, you're automatically considered for a scholarship. I'll pass it back to Anita to let us know how that differs for the master's program.
Thank you. Okay, so for the master's program, I think one way it differs is that unlike the DPhil where you have to identify a supervisor and develop your research project together, for the master's, it's just the course you're applying to. So you go back to the official Oxford website, as you mentioned, and go through the different departments. There's even a list they have called A to Z of courses. And then you look at the different master's programs available in the different departments. And each master's has its own website with more information in terms of background information, qualifications or eligibility criteria, then the application process, how they assess applications, as well as the application link to the application page. So then once you identify a course and you go to the website and you check that you fit the eligibility criteria, then you go to the application page. It's usually just a big button written apply here. Then you fill in your details. So it's like an online form. You provide your personal details and your previous academic qualifications, and then depending on the type of course, you may have to write a personal statement. Actually, you always have to write a personal statement, and there may be additional essays required depending on the course. And then you also submit your documents, that is your previous qualifications and your CV. You submit them, all of them online. And then you provide details about your referees, just the details and their email addresses. Then they will be sent a prompt in their email address that you provide to write your reference letters. So that is how the process differs for master's degrees. And then some master's programs have an interview. So once you're shortlisted, you do an interview, but that comes way later after you submit your application. So that is the difference. Another difference is that for most master's scholarships, yes, we have the automatic funding qualification. Like if you show interest that you would like to be considered for funding, they may do that, but funding is not guaranteed for all master's students. So then you have to apply for external scholarships, and these require different qualifications, rather different submissions, which I'm guessing our scholars will tell us about depending on the programs they're on. So there are extra essays you have to provide, sometimes extra referees and other documents for depending on which scholarship you are applying for. And then there are also scholarships that are based in Oxford that you provide a different application for, but there are also scholarships that are external, like the Shivning Scholarship is a government scholarship. So you apply different, like it's a whole different entire process. But the Oxford ones, you can apply at the same time you're applying for your course, which I believe will be covered by the scholars themselves. Yes, that's how a master's application generally runs. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for covering all of that basis, Anita. So I think we're going to dive right into talking about the different scholarships, just so that we're not taking time talking about all of the applications, because all of those other information are out there on the website. Just a quick start from me. So I am on the Clarendon Scholarship. I will just speak a bit about that and the department scholarship, and then I'll hand over to Moshood, because that's the order that you all appear on my screen. So I will. So for the Clarendon Scholarship, usually for the PhD. So I'm a PhD student, and I think this might apply the same way for master students on the Clarendon Scholarship as well. The Clarendon Scholarship is one of the university scholarships. And usually what happens for the Clarendon Scholarship is that so after we've submitted our applications, each of the applications are assessed by criteria that the department has set out. And based on performance within the department, people are then selected. So the top performing students are then selected. So departments also have their own scholarships. So top performing students in each department are offered departmental scholarships. So there are a number of students in my department who are on the departmental scholarship. But for the Clarendon one, so each department then selects some of the top performing students in their department and then submits their name to the Clarendon Fund. And the Clarendon Fund sort of gets the top students from all of the departments in the university, or most of the departments in the university, and then they are then reassessed again to then determine who they choose to offer the Clarendon Scholarship or not offer the Clarendon Scholarship. So there really is nothing extra you're doing for the Clarendon Scholarship. You are just submitting a very good application and your personal statement, and it is assessed. If the department thinks it's good enough to then submit for the university-wide Clarendon, assessment, and if your profile is put forward and you're considered for the Clarendon, that's how about you come about Clarendon. So it's not like the Chevening or Commonwealth that you have to make a different application for. So yes, that's the Clarendon Scholarship. I will hand over to you, Moshood, to tell us about, what's the magic for your own scholarship. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm on the Oxford Pershing Square Scholarship. It's kind of one of the few scholarships in Oxford that provides funding for more than one master's program. I think the other one is Rhodes. So basically, it provides funding for the 1+1 MBA program. And what that means is a combination of a master's program with the MBA. So you get to spend 2 years, 2 consecutive years at the University of Oxford. You do the first master's, then the second year, you move on to the MBA. So on the Side Business School website, you can just click on the 1+1 program where you have all of this information. So there's a list of master's programs that you can combine with the MBA. I think there are about 35 of them. It cuts across different disciplines. So the Pershing Square Scholarship provides full funding for both programs, for your master's and also your MBA. It provides tuition, it provides living expenses. That's what they call the stipends for both programs. And there are a few selection criteria and eligibility criteria. In terms of country, there's no restriction. Anybody from any country can apply to it. In terms of eligibility criteria, the uniqueness to it is when you're applying for the 1+1 MBA, it means you're applying for 2 masters, right? So you have to get admission into 2 different masters, the masters and the MBA. And for the masters, and like I said, there are a lot of them, about 35 of them. So that means there are about 3 possibilities. You get into the 2 masters, that means your 1+1 admission is complete. You get into the masters and you don't get into the MBA. That means you have the MSc. You can decide to take up your offer and look for other funding at the University of Oxford. You not be qualified for the Pershing Square scholarship. Then the third possible outcome is you don't get into the MSc, but you get into the MBA. So the Side Business School can decide to let you take up your MBA that year. So for a few things that the Pershing Square Scholarship required, there is an essay that you have to write. Basically, the essay, the heading is how would you change the world, and what does it tell you? What does it tell us about you? Just talk about basically what's your career outline is, what problems in the world do you want to solve? Is it climate change? Is it, for example, we're from Africa, so there's a lot of issue with healthcare access in Africa. So basically talk about the problem in the world that you want to change, your methodology for changing that problem. How do you want to change it? How the 1+1 MBA would help you to change, to solve that issue, and how you would scale it. And the other part is, what does it tell them about you as a person, your passion, your goal, how you're goal-oriented, how you're a leader. So those are basically the requirements for the Oxford Pershing Square Scholarship. So I'll stop here. If there are any specific questions to this, I'll be answering them later. And also the website, the Side Business School websites, and of course the partnering master's courses. Their websites, they are very good resource materials that one can go through to get more information on this. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Moshood. Mwangi, could you tell us if sorry, I keep mixing up the scholarships, but could you tell us if there is something different or unique that has to be done in terms of paperwork or the application that needs to be done differently from what we have said for maybe Clarendon and the Pershing Square for your own scholarship?
Sure. Thank you so much. First of all, to confirm that my audio is okay now.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Perfect. So I'm on the Rhodes Scholarship, and the Rhodes Scholarship is quite extensive in terms of the application process. So, for example, the application opened between June and August, and you have to make your application within that time for the scholarship before you even make the application for the school, because most of the school application opens in October. So what happens here is that you need to submit your personal statement, academic statement, and you also have to have 5 recommendation letters sent in to the Rhodes Trust by 30th August. So you have 3 academic statements. Those are people who taught you in your undergrad or in other forms of teaching. Then you have 2 character referees. This could be someone who's Was your coach, your pastor, or just someone you've interacted with in a professional capacity or in an extracurricular capacity? So often you'll hear from the Road Trust for each consideration. Something else I have to say about the Road Scholarship is that different countries have different number of positions they get. So, for example, in Kenya, they take 2 scholars every year. Then there are 2 scholars for East Africa, which can fall for Uganda, Tanzania, Burundi, Rwanda. There's also South Africa gets 10 position or 10 seats. Zambia has 2. I think the same with Zimbabwe has 2. But also there's the global scholars. There's 2 positions for the global scholarship. So if your country does not fit in any of these constituencies, they call them, you can submit an application as one of the global scholars. So and be there, your hope that you get shortlisted. So the shortlisting happened around November and October. Mine last year happened on November 1st. That's when we got the information of where we had been shortlisted, 8 of us. Then we went for the selection dinner, then the interview the next day. We were only given 1 week to prepare. And after you've done the interview, you get the results on the same day, and you now apply for school, now for Oxford. So you already have the assurance that you have funding for two plus years, because what Rhodes funds is that they fund you for a master's, then they can fund you for a DPhil. So it can be a master's and a DPhil, or could be 2 masters. Or some people do a master, then they decide to do a service year where you're still on stipend and you get to actualize a project in a community whenever you want to do that from. So it's a combination of quite a lot of options for you that are offered. The other thing I would mention about the roads is that what else would be? So there is the school application, there is the scholarship application first, there is the shortlisting, there is the interview, which is independent from Oxford, then there's the school application after. Then everything seems to be sorted in that regard. But yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We'll move on to Patricia. Patricia, if you could please tell us about AFOX Fellowship, the MasterCard Fellowship. Is there anything unique in terms of the application and what prospective students need to know in terms of applying to AFOX?
Okay, great. Thank you. First, just to add on to what Mwangi was saying, you should have also mentioned that before you get to the interviews, ideally, they will do their shortlisting and finally narrow down to 8 strong candidates. Then the 8 strong candidates, those are the ones that will go for a free dinner, then go through the interview. So by the time you're going to the interview, it's basically against 8, 7, you're the 8th person. Yeah, I was with Mwangi on that dinner, but I'm still here now. So with AFOX, for me, what I did basically, I applied to the university directly and I was hoping to get funding. I had read the website, and it's very rich in terms of information on where to get funding, internal funding, external funding. So somehow I believed that I was going to get funding in some way. So after my application was received and was accepted, then that's when I got a link from AFOX saying, you look like you're from this part of the world that could benefit to this funding, so apply by this deadline. And with AFOX funding, they sort of have sort of the whole application, like so you've already applied to the university, so they have this huge information about you, about your referees, blah 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 blah. So they'll only just ask you some few questions basically to gauge your understanding and your motivation. Yes, you have the motivation letter, but they'll ask you questions. And for me, how I saw the questions were basically to see if you really want to do what you've applied for at Oxford, depending on how you answer. For example, if you're going to do, for me, I'm doing environmental change and management. So when they asked, one of the questions was, what's that one pressing issue in the world that you'd like to solve? So for me, because I'm really passionate about climate and that's what I'm here to study, I wrote about climate. I wrote how it's affecting my continent and how I'd want to, gain experience and gain networks, all this stuff in Oxford to take back to my continent and my country. So with AFOX, you have to have received admission from the university, but understand
Anita could come in and bring in the aspect of we have like a pre-mentorship program, which for me I hadn't known about. So we have a mentorship program just before the applications for Oxford are closed. So probably Anita could speak much about that because I was not part of the mentorship program. But this is where I believe you get to have your application fees waived. For me, I hadn't known anything about that, but yeah. So also for Avox, it's a full scholarship. Of course, you get your ticket, your visa, and everything else plus stipend. Yeah, thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Patricia. That is super helpful. And now we move to Francis. If you could tell us how the process for application for Commonwealth, how that differs from all the other scholarships we've talked about.
Okay, thank you very much. So for the Commonwealth Scholarship, you broadly have two options. There's the Commonwealth General Scholarship, which just closed, I think a week ago or so. And that you apply separately to the Commonwealth Scholarship. They have their own process. You apply on their website through a nominating agency. And if you're nominating agency, so it's like a two-layered process. The nominating agency is the first layer of screening. They go through, depending on your country and the number of applications and number of people that choose that agency, they go through all the applications, sieve out, well, the best of the best. And let's say they are supposed to take 200, maybe they're supposed to take 50 people, and they had like 5,000 applications, they'll sieve out like 200 out of the 5,000. And that's what they will forward to the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission. And then the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission now does the second layer of screening to finally arrive at those 50 people that will be given the scholarship. So it's a two-layered process that starts from the Commonwealth website. So you go to their website when it's advertised, you apply there, choose your nominating agency. I could talk more later about that, but this is just preliminaries. You choose your nominating agency. When you click submit, your application goes first to the nominating agency, who now screens everyone before forwarding to, if you are nominated, that means they are now forwarding your application to the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission. And then if you go through that second layer, then you get a notification from them. This means that as you are applying for the Commonwealth Scholarship, it's a separate process from applying for Oxford. And now from my experience, just like I had mentioned, the deadline for Commonwealth Scholarship comes like 2 months before the deadline to apply for Oxford. That's for the Commonwealth General, which can fund either your master's or your PhD, depending on whichever one you are hoping to go for. So that would mean that you need to have secured a supervisor and gone through the whole process on the Commonwealth site, meet all their conditions, and then come back and do a separate application to the University of Oxford for a place. So if you are successful, so it's now have two layers of success. One, usually you will hear from the university first. So you hear from the university if you got admission, then you know that you're one step into Oxford. Then you wait for a few months, I would say, and then you hear from the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission. If you got the scholarship, then those two now open the road to you for you to come to Oxford. On the other hand, there's the Commonwealth Shared Scholarships, in which is similar. You apply through the Commonwealth Scholarship website still, but this time around, there's no nominating agency layer. Rather, the University of Oxford, or any university of your choice, but since we're talking about Oxford today, the University of Oxford becomes your nominating agency. So you are applying through the University of Oxford. So it's on the Commonwealth website. You select the course that you want to study. So usually what happens in a main Commonwealth scholarship, you are funded fully by the Commonwealth scholarship, except in exceptional cases where the cost of your fees are, like in Oxford, are so high, then there's some sort of sharing formula between the scholarship body and the university on how to pay your fees, and your allowances or stipends come from the Scholarship Commission. But if you're on a shared scholarship where, like the name implies, the responsibility for you as a scholar is shared by both the university and the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission, the university usually takes care of your tuition and things like your flights, while the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission takes care of your stipend. So to apply for the shared one, so if you still want to come to Oxford on a Commonwealth shared scholarship, you still have a chance. That has not even opened yet, so don't be discouraged. The only caveat there is that the shared scholarships don't fund PhDs. So if you're looking for a Commonwealth PhD scholarship, it just closed about 10 days ago or so. But if you are looking for a master's, then the Commonwealth shared scholarships, they usually open between December, January, or thereabout. And the other limitation is it's not for every course. So every university like Oxford decides the programs that they want to give shared scholarships for. So Oxford could list maybe 10 master's degrees or 15, depending on the year and what funding is available, and say, okay, you can apply to any of these. So you would need to go to either the University of Oxford website, or better still, go to the Commonwealth website when the application opens. When you pick on the universities that have slots, when you go on that University of Oxford, you see the list of all the masters available. So in this case, for a shared scholarship, what happens is that you apply both for your scholarship and the master simultaneously. So the idea is you apply for your university's admission first, because when you apply, you're going to get like some kind of code number or so, application number. And then when you go to the Commonwealth Scholarship website and you fill the application, there's a place that you, of course, you choose your university, choose the course which is being funded. There's a place where you need to put your application number from the university so that they can tie your admission application to your Commonwealth scholarship application. So usually, just like happens in the general scholarship, when you click the submit button, your application first goes to the University of Oxford, where they rank you among other applicants. If they are now happy to give you both admission and scholarship, then they'll say, okay, we'll give you admission, and they will now nominate you to the Commonwealth Scholarship Commission for the scholarship. And then usually it's almost a given. Once the university nominates you, they would have done a very thorough screening. So usually you almost always get funded. So then you get an email saying you've now gotten a shared scholarship. So I think I'll stop here and then possibly happy to give any insights as the case may be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Francis. That was very helpful. And lastly, Phil, if you could tell us how your own scholarship, I think you're the last panelist to tell us that. Tell us what is different about your own scholarship. And after you speak, we'll dive right into the questions because we have so many questions from the participants.
Okay, thank you very much, Uchenna. Yeah, my name is Phil Chige. As I said, I'm from Zimbabwe, and I'm on the Bay Trust Scholarship. So I'm just going to speak briefly about the Bay Trust, and then just give a few tips in a minute or so. So the Bay Trust Scholarship funds scholars coming from Southern Africa, that's Zimbabwe, Zambia, and Malawi. And it funds in different universities. It has what it calls partner universities, and Oxford is one of them. So in the UK and South Africa. In the UK, there's Oxford, there's Cambridge, Edinburgh, Leeds, Glasgow, and also the School of Government here at Oxford. Then in South Africa, they also have partner universities, and everything is found on the website. They fund for your tuition and your living expenses, so you're pretty much sorted for that. Then I've talked about the countries where they fund, where the scholars come from. Then also what is very important for their eligibility criteria is the work experience. So they want, I think, about 2 years of work experience. And for medical doctors, hopefully you should have completed your internship, and they would prefer someone who has done a year in the district. I'm sure people from that part of the world would know what I'm talking about. But in exceptional circumstances, there are people who are quite exceptional who have been funded by the Bay Trust without that work experience. So it's not a bummer if you don't have that, but it's something that sets you up. Then academic, your academic record is also very important, as is for many other scholarships. So that is also important, but also, leadership experience, work experience, those things are very important. So I think that's basically the much about the scholarship. Then I think I'm just going to give a few tips about the application process. Then, so number one, deadlines are very important. As you may have had, there are two things here. Number one is admission into the university. Then secondly is getting funding. So like what Anita was saying, you may get admitted, but you may not get funding. So it's very important to see that there's a separate processes and you're very organized in terms of applying, especially for funding. So deadlines are important, especially the funding deadline here in Oxford and in Cambridge. So you need to have that sorted and apply, because as you can hear, like what Mwangi was saying, I think for the Rhodes Scholarship, some of them, they have actually closed. So you should know where you are and what you want to apply for. And the scholarships have different deadlines, as for example, for the Buy Trust, I think the deadline should be somewhere in January or February. I'm not sure for this year. So you need to have that on your calendar and make sure that that is sorted. Then the second tip, I think, cast your net wide. I think for me, that made all the difference in terms of funding. I think I applied everywhere and anywhere and put in a good application. So don't just apply for one thing, because you never know. It's quite a competitive process. And the more you apply to different universities, the more chances that you have. So if you hear about AFOX, if you hear about BITE, if you hear about Rhodes, just apply for those things, especially if you have got an admission. One thing will give in. Then thirdly, what those people are looking for, especially in these applications, is the difference that you want to do in the world. So when you apply, I think it's I don't know, it's Patricia was talking about the question that she was asked in the AFOX interview. So think about what you want to do in the future after you get a master's or a DPhil, and weave that into your story and your work experience, so that, because you need to be clear about this is an investment in you, and it's a lot of money, especially for international students. Why should they invest in you? So don't just talk about the past, about things that you have done, but think about the change that you want to do and what you can't do now, but what that DPhil or a postgrad qualification will do. Then penultimately, it's very important to get someone to review applications. I think it made all the difference for me. But I know some people complain about getting a lot of requests, so be very respectful for people, because they may have very busy schedules. I mean, Anita is just coming from class right now. So please be respectful of that. But get someone who has been through the process very respectfully, and please understand them if they don't do that. Then one other thing I think lastly that we don't do as Africans is, I think, put your best foot forward. Many times we sell ourselves short when it comes to these applications, and we don't talk about our best. You know, there are things that you have done that you don't find inconsequential, but actually they may be the difference in your application. So do not be afraid to say what you have done and to paint yourself in the best light. Don't lie, but please do paint yourself in the best light, because they want people who are competitive. And trust me, your experiences are what will make the difference, because you have got a unique experience that I don't have. I've got something that I don't have, and that makes a place for you in places like this. I think that will be what I have to say for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And I'm glad that we have our sixth panelist in the call now. That's Clifford. Clifford, if you could please just introduce yourself, what course you're studying, which scholarship you're on, and tell us what you think is different in terms of the application for your scholarship based on what others have said. And then we will get right into the questions. Maybe you could also address the first question. People have been asking about work experience required for scholarships, and I believe your scholarship touches heavily on that. So you could tell us, just introduce yourself, your scholarship, and then talk about work experience and how to prove that.
Yes, hello, everybody. My name is Clifford Kofi. I am studying international health and tropical medicine. Yes, me too. I've seen the questions being asked. I'm on the Achieving Scholarship, and Fortunately or unfortunately, I took a more formal approach to this, so I prepared some slides, but there are very few slides. Is it okay if I share my slides?
Yeah, sure. I think you can. Yeah, if they're brief. Yeah.
Okay. It's going to be brief, I promise. Okay, the sharing has been disabled. Can someone enable it, please?
Sorry, I think because we're live streaming, I'm not sure if it's possible to share.
All right,
Sorry about
then
that.
maybe I'll just speak then.
Okay.
Okay, so the Chevening Scholarship is a very prestigious scholarship. And unfortunately, the deadline for the scholarship is in about 7 or 8 days. It ends on the 7th of November, 2023. So if you are thinking of applying to this scholarship, you better move fast. So the scholarship covers tuition fees. It also covers all living allowances, and economy class return airfare to the UK. And then
It is sorry, Cliff. You can share now if you still like to share. I think they've enabled it.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
That's great. Yeah. All right. Are my slides visible?
Yes, we can see them. You can just put them in full slideshow mode.
Screen.
Yeah, full screen. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right. So this is what the scholarship covers. So it covers tuition fees. It covers a living allowance. It also covers an economy class return airfare. And then it also covers any other additional grants. For example, if you're in a country where a TB test is required before you come, Chevening will cover a portion of those fees as well. So it's a pretty generous scholarship. So in order to qualify for a Chevening scholarship, you first have to be a citizen of a Chevening eligible country. And fortunately, there are so many countries on this list. So you can just visit the Chevening website and make sure that your country is on it. But more likely than not, you are going to be eligible in that regard. The second thing is that you have to have completed all components of an undergraduate degree. So you have to have had a bachelor's degree education, and you should have an upper second class, about 2:1 honors degree in the UK before you can apply. And then you should have completed at least 2 years of work experience. They are very, very serious when it comes to this, because before you're even allowed to submit your application, you have to go through the work experience section. And when you get there, you have to follow the instructions carefully, because the number of hours that they ask you to, talk about has to be very exact. If you go beyond the number of hours, you may be disqualified. If you go below the number of hours, you may also be disqualified. But you have to have at least 2 years work experience before applying for Chevening. And then you have to go to the website. So this is the application. This is the application deadline. So currently we are somewhere here. The application deadline is on the 7th of November, 2023. So there's not a lot of time. And if you want to apply to Chevening, you have to get going now. And then you would be called for interviews if you are shortlisted around February 2024. And then you are going to get your final decision around June 2024. So it's a very long process. So if you are going to apply to Chevening, applying to Chevening is different from applying to the University of Oxford and any other school, as many of the previous participants have said. But the important thing about Chevening is that you have to apply to at least 3 schools. So you have to select at least 3 schools and apply to all these 3 schools. So I'm sure everyone is here because they want to come to Oxford. So Oxford will be one. And then you have to scour through their website and then apply to 2 other schools. And then you should list the schools according to your preference. That's also very important, because you would realize that in the essays, you have to actually list the schools in order of preference. So once again, just a summary of the timelines. Application opened all the way in September, and they'll be closing very soon. So I would just like to focus on this one now. There are 4 essay questions that you need to answer in your application. And the 4 essays have different themes. The first one is leadership. The second one is network. The third one is why study in the UK. And the fourth one is career plan. And if you want to be successful in your Chevening application, it is absolutely essential that you take these essays seriously. And Chevening has a way that they want you to write your essays. And if you deviate from these predetermined pathways, the probability that you'd get accepted is low. So I would advise everyone to actually go to the website, because I don't have enough time to shed more light on these. But if you go to the website, there's actually a very useful section that talks about the kind of elements in your essay that they require for you to be considered a good or successful applicant. And they give examples of such things that they expect. So you'll do yourself a big favor if you read the website carefully. So these are just a few things to brag about Chevening. So yes, you can be next. So basically that is an overview of the Chevening Scholarship. And yeah, I hope that was enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Cliff. That was very good. I think anyone who has any questions about Chevening, they've been answered by now. And then we've had questions as well about age limits, and I would like Mwangi to address a question about which scholarships have age limits and what are those age limits, because I think your scholarship has something about that. Mwangi?
Sure. Thank you, Anita. So the Rhodes Scholarship, yes, has an age limit of 25 years. Also for people in social sciences, that is like they say you have to be less than 25 years by the time you apply when you're getting at Oxford, but they do recognize that some degrees go longer than 4 years. So for example, if you're in engineering and medicine in most African countries, that degree will be a bit longer. So they do recognize that. So for those people, it says 27 years. So the highest is 27, but depending on which discipline you are in, for most, it might apply that it's 25 years. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mwangi. And I think that the Rhodes is the only scholarship that I'm aware of that has an age limit, right? I would say. Okay.
I think so at the moment.
Okay, thank you for that. And the next question we have is, do I have to have a first-class degree to get a scholarship in Oxford? So we'll go around and we'll give opinions or experiences about this. Does someone have to have a first-class degree or a perfect GPA to get scholarship to come study at Oxford? We could start with Patricia.
Hey Anita. So let me answer 2 questions. I've seen there's the question for the English proficiency, and I'd want to say that for the English proficiency, you can request for a waiver, and ideally you have to submit a letter that is given by your former school, saying that you are taught in English and everything in your coursework was in English, basically to prove that you, for your undergrad, everything was in English. And ideally it should be at least within 2 years since you graduated. So for me, I was able to get an English proficiency test. So I never really did the IELTS exams. And yeah, then what was the next question, Anita?
Sorry to jump in, Patricia. Could you clarify where your undergrad or your previous program was in? Because this is a question that did come across several prospective participants actually did bring up this question about IELTS. So does this work for particular countries, or irrespective of whatever country in Africa it is, as long as you've been taught in English? Is it possible to get the waiver, and who, the English language waiver, and who exactly wrote the letter for you, and what exactly was the content of the letter that was given to you, and who did you have to submit it with, to? or did you just include that during your application process? So if you could please lean into that a bit. And the question that she had asked earlier was about, oh, I've forgotten your question. Sorry. What
So
was the other
you
question,
could talk
Anita?
a bit more about the English requirements and then the academic qualification. People, there are several concerns about whether everyone has to have a first class or perfect GPA to get a scholarship at Oxford. So maybe you could touch on the English requirement as well as the academic requirements for scholarship.
Okay, thank you so much. So, off to the English proficiency waiver. I am from Kenya, so I did my undergrad in Kenya, and in Kenya we speak both English and Swahili. But I can tell you that for a fact that there are people from Kenya who had to do the IELTS exam. So again, it's based on the span of when you graduated from your college from your undergrad. Yeah, then also, who gave me the letter? Actually, I had to go to the academic registrar in my institution because I think he's the one who has the powers to claim that you were taught in English and everything that was done in school, including your coursework, your fieldwork, your reports, your dissertation and everything was done in English. So basically it has to be done by your academic registrar and they have to stamp it. So I just went to the institution and I told them that I'm applying for a scholarship and I'd like to get an English proficiency waiver letter just so that you can back up my application that I was taught in English and everything was in English. And the year of graduation was in 2021, so still within the 2 years limit. I think I've answered that. And so back to in terms of grading, whether it's first class or second class upper, if I'm being honest, Oxford is highly competitive, and I think it's put on the website that you have to get most people who are guaranteed of, it's not also guaranteed, but people with the highest chances of being absorbed to the university are people with first class honors. But for example, if you had a second class upper and you have vast experience and I believe you should be you also a qualified candidate. There's that band they make. They don't take always first class honors, but there's the band that they make for people with second class upper and have vast experience in creating impact into the society. Basically, you just have to show that you're both worlds. I'm good academically and I'm good in creating impact. I've been working with the community. So that should motivate you. And also in terms of work experience, it doesn't really have to be that I was employed by so and so and so. Actually, what they mean by work experience is even volunteer. If you volunteered for this number of hours, basically it's you working with the community. So don't stress yourself that I've not been officially employed. Just what you have done to the community, and you have to prove that you're good both in your academics. Doesn't really have to be a first class honors, but also that you're really passionate for the cause that you're applying for. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. So maybe we could talk a bit. I know we've mentioned about the priority deadline, the first deadline, and then Chevening and Commonwealth scholars have talked about their deadline, but I think there's a bit of confusion about the deadlines, especially about Oxford specific scholarships, such as the Pershing Square one. So maybe Moshood, you could talk about application deadlines. When do you submit your application for the Pershing Square scholarship, and then the master's degree, and then the MBA? Because I feel like those are 3 applications in one. So do you submit them? Like, how is the application process really in terms of deadlines? Maybe you could touch on that, and then a bit about your interview for the Pershing Square scholarship.
Yeah, thanks, Anita. So for the deadline for Pershing Square Scholarship, because you are effectively applying to 2 different programs at the University of Oxford, they have 2 different deadlines. So for the partnering master's program, when you go to the department website, they have a stated deadline. Most of these deadlines are usually in December or in January. I know for my course, the deadline is in December. For like public policy course, the deadline is in January. But for the MBA has three different cycles of application. You have to apply by the second cycle for you to be eligible for the Pershing Square Scholarship. And the second cycle is January 5. So take, for example, for my course, the deadline is in December, but for the MBA, the deadline is in January. What that means is I have to apply to my course in December and also submit an application to the MBA by January 5. Of course, when I'm applying to the MBA, I have to state that I'm applying for 1+1, and then they would ask me what partnering course am I applying to and if I've applied to it. So that's for the MBA 1+1 for you to be eligible for the Pershing Square Scholarship. I think there was a question that was asked about the interview. So for the interview, basically, they want to know their criteria, and that's also on the website. There are things they are looking for. They are looking for people who are leaders or who will be leaders, people who have passion for creating sustainable change and scalable change to societal issues, right? And of course, people who have good personal character with integrity and the likes, people who are motivated. So the interview is basically centered around that. The questions are centered around those things that they are looking for. And they are very easy things to answer, especially if you know what your motivations are, what you want to do. They are basically trying to get you to expatiate on what you've put down in your essays and in your applications. So that's it for the Pershing Square Scholarship. If there are any other questions, I'm sure you could always reach out to me and other Pershing Square scholars. I will be willing to answer. But for now, if there are no other questions, I'll just pause here.
Thank you, Moshood. Phil, earlier on, I thought I knew when I said that the Rhodes Scholarship is the only one with an age limit, but I think, Phil, your scholarship has an age limit. So you could talk about the age limit for the Byte Trust Scholarship, as well as a bit more on academic qualifications and what you have to say about it.
Okay, thanks very much, Anita. So for the Byte Trust, I think the age limit is 30. But for medical doctors and vet doctors, considering the training that it's long as what Mangi was saying, I think it's extended to 35. Then yeah, on the English thing, the fact that you, of course, on the when you're applying to Oxford, they'll write about the English requirements, but you don't have to have the English requirements at the point of application, as far as I know. This is something that you'll need to have. Maybe you can actually get a conditional offer on the condition that you show that you satisfy the English requirements. So don't stop applying because you don't have the English. And the English, requirements that also are dealt with on a case-to-case basis is what Patricia was saying. So it's very possible that if you don't have anything, like if they say they want 7.5 in IELTS and you have an alternative way of proving that, I can be waived and Anita may not be waived. So it's dealt with on a case-by-case basis. Then maybe the last thing I want to chime in on was on the issue of grading. I won't lie, it's quite competitive, and I don't think any one of us here can talk about what grades are required and are not, but the departments can, and those are stated on the university websites. But like what Patricia was saying, there are other things that can put you in very good light. Academics are not everything, and many of us at this point maybe we're influenced by COVID and other things. So if you've got extenuating circumstances, don't shy explaining things like that, because sometimes they actually listen. And besides, if you do explain, what do you lose? If they listen to you, that's it. If they don't, you lose nothing. At least you've tried. Thank you.
Sorry, just to chime in here, or just to another question or line of question that does come up a lot in the questions we got prior to this session is, A number of students have asked, I did not finish with a 2-1, I finished with a 2-2. Is it still possible to apply to Oxford? We also have people asking if you had like a 2-2 in your undergrad, but you've had a first master's where you had a distinction. Am I able to apply to Oxford? So since you're already speaking in that line, could you maybe chime in a bit more on that? Thank you.
Okay, and that's a tricky one, but yeah, I think the fact that one is thinking of applying to Oxford, that means that internally you believe that you're eligible. And I would say go for it. Go for it. But the academic requirements are clearly listed on every course, at least as far as I'm concerned. But I mean, a master's usually, if you've got a master's and you're applying for a second master's, they also look into that. And also the departments here, they are very open. And if you think that you've got issues, you can reach out to them even before applying. Sometimes you can even visit. I visited Oxford before I even applied, just to see how I wanted to. And you can have conversations with people like that, because people, I mean, at least comparing with where I came from, people here listen more and they're a bit more tolerant. So sometimes I would say if you feel that you are eligible and you can explain your story, if it's not fitting, I would say go for it. Yeah, but yeah, the requirements are there on the website. It's not clear, but yeah, that's what I'll say for now.
Thank you, Phil. So my next set of questions will be to Francis and Clifford, the Commonwealth and Chevening Scholarship, because those are sort of external scholarships to Oxford. They're independent of Oxford. So if I'm applying to Oxford and I'd like to apply for Commonwealth or Chevening, do I need to get an offer from Oxford first, or how do I go about that? So we could start with Francis and then Cliff.
Okay, thank you. I'd say no, you don't need. The categorical answer is no. You just need to choose, and I think same applies for Chevening. You just need to choose the universities that you are interested in and the program. So depending on whether it's a master's or PhD, you just select the schools basically. But it's expected that before June, July the next year, so that's like at least a 6 to 8 month period, you would have secured unconditional funding in at least one of those universities. Usually they'll prefer that the school you made your first choice should be your first choice. But if for any reason something came up and you didn't have your first choice admission, at least one of your 3 choices should give you admission that is unconditional. That means if they require English language test, you sorted that one out either by writing IELTS or getting a waiver. If they needed any sort of certificates, there are some technical programs that may need you to have, is it ATAS or some sort of certification? You do all that so that the only pending thing is where's the money? Do you have the money to fund this program? Then if you get the scholarship, all they'll do is ask you for your admission letter and they'll take it up from there. So yeah, so the answer is no, you don't. And about that, I would say do not, yeah, some people say maybe it's an advantage to have. Well, maybe, but I really don't see the advantage. All the times I applied, I really didn't have any of the admissions per se, but just sent in knowing that they need it beforehand. And of course, anyone here wants to come to Oxford. So what I usually recommend is don't sell your shelf short. It's a free scholarship, right? Like, so why don't you go for the best? Apply to the Oxfords and the Cambridges of this world, such that if you get in, fine. Then I usually advise again, since it's 3 courses, make sure your third choice is, don't be overconfident. Again, depends on who you are. If you know you are that superstar, why not? Oxford, Cambridge, Imperial, or whatever. And then you are sure you must get into at least one of them. But sometimes, just to avoid anything going wrong, maybe a third choice is something middle class. I won't mention names of any universities, but you know what I mean. So such that you're sure that, okay, just in case for some reason Oxford says no and Cambridge says no, maybe that third school says yes, so that, because it has happened in the past where someone got the scholarship, either Commonwealth or Chevening, and then all the three schools did not give admission, and that's how the person had to lose out. So just be a little, well, again, depends on your confidence, but I usually say aim high. So your first two choices should be super schools. Then the third choice could be one of the middle guys, and then just as a backup. Yeah, so that's it for me. You don't need admission at the time of application.
Thank you. Cliff, do you share the same sentiment?
Yes, absolutely. Francis was spot on. I'll just like to add a little bit more to what he said. So you are supposed to apply to at least 3 schools. So you can actually apply for more. And when you make it to the interview and you get to the interview and your top 3 schools didn't give you admission, but then another school gave you admission, which wasn't your top 3, you can actually discuss it with them and they can let you switch your schools up. So you shouldn't necessarily limit yourself to 3, although, like I said, you will be required to write about your top 3 choices and then explain why you chose these 3 in your Chevening application essays. So yeah, apart from that, everything he said was absolutely spot on.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I hand over to Uchenna, Ruth, I think I've seen so many questions about the AFOX mentorship. I was trying not to focus on them because we're talking about scholarships, but I feel like so many people have questions about that. So do you want to talk a bit about that?
Okay, so the Afrisoc mentorship scheme, essentially even this scholarship imposition is part of that Afrisoc mentorship scheme, where we're just trying to ensure that we have more Africans coming to study in Oxford, and we try to help as much as possible in whichever way that we can. So the mentorship scheme, we sent out the call for mentees. You should have seen it online somewhere because we posted it on all our social media platforms. The deadline for application is this coming is it no right no Thursday, yeah. It should be on 2nd November. That's the deadline for applying. So if you still want to apply for the mentorship program, this is the time to apply. Don't wait for the deadline and then you start sending emails and be like, oh, I want to be part of the mentorship scheme. And once you apply, we're gonna send out the acceptance to a few people because unfortunately we can't mentor everyone. So we're gonna select a few that we will mentor and offer the application fee waivers. But that doesn't mean that if you don't get that, if you don't get into the mentorship program, it does not mean that you're not good. It doesn't mean that you cannot apply to Oxford. It doesn't mean that you do not qualify. It's just because we are limited in terms of capacity and in terms of the waivers that we can issue out. So we have to take only a few people. But please, if you don't get into the programs, please proceed and submit an application to Oxford. Just try to get the £75 and apply to Oxford if your country doesn't qualify for a fee waiver. And then go for it. Yeah, just go for it. Don't let that be a hindrance for you to apply. And for those that will get into the mentorship program, this does not mean that now you have guaranteed a place, you're guaranteed a place in Oxford. Okay, so if you get into the mentorship program, it only means that we've like given you a getaway, or like we've opened a door for you. So you still need to put in more effort with applications. So make sure that your CVs are in place, your motivation letter is superb, and everything is on point. So that even as you apply to Oxford, you're increasing your chances to be accepted. So if you get accepted to the mentorship program, it doesn't mean that Oxford has accepted you. So don't confuse that. So we, as Afrisoc or the Oxford University Africa Set, we are only helping you with application. We are not giving you a scholarship to study at Oxford. So that's totally different. And I hope that is clear for everyone. And I hope that answers all questions regarding mentorship.
Thank you, Ruth. Yes, that covers it. And I've seen a question on if you have previously applied to a scholarship, are you eligible to apply again? Yes, I believe almost all scholarships have unlimited trials. So even if you are not accepted the first time, you can apply again the subsequent years. Personally, I am a victim of the same. I did not get some scholarships the first time, but once I applied the second time, I got them. But I believe there's one scholarship that has a limitation to that. Mwangi, maybe you could talk about how many trials are accepted for Rhodes.
Thank you, Anita. Unfortunately, I think for Rhodes you can only apply twice. So if you did apply the first time, you're only expected to apply once again. But also here, the age issue also limits you in regards to how many times you can apply for the Rhodes scholarship. So I think that's how it works.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, it's just the Rhodes though. All the other ones you can apply as many times as possible. So Uchenna, are there any questions from your end?
Yes, so there are additional questions that we still have from the pool of questions we got, and I'm just going to lump several questions into one, and that is coming to you, Francis. So we have a number of people that are contemplating applying for a PhD program here in Oxford. Someone is asking, do I need to have a publication before I put in applications for a PhD? The other person is asking, how do I find the right supervisor? The other person is asking, I've sent emails to supervisors, I've sent cold emails, and the supervisor still has not yet responded to me. How do I deal with this? And one last one, so for someone who is looking to apply for the DPhil in public policy, but has not taken any specific research modules in their masters, how are they able to cope? Would you still advise them to go ahead and apply for a PhD if they have not taken research modules in their masters? Francis.
Okay, that's quite a lot. I'm trying to even put the questions down first. So I think I'll start with the one on publications. If you have publications, it's an advantage. However, if you don't have publications, still apply. There are a lot of other factors they consider. So it's competitive. The person who has publications may be a few steps ahead of you because you don't have, but that does not mean because you don't have publications, you can't get in if you tick every other box. So like myself, at the time I was applying to Oxford, my publications were still in just submitted for publication, had not yet been published. And I stated it that way. And I know a few people who have come in without having publications, but when they came in, they were now able. So you are assessed on several factors. So just not having publications alone might not be what will cut you out. But if there's a way you can, maybe, for example, you've done research and you're working on a publication, find a way to state it in your personal statement, and that might tick a box a little that, okay, well, he doesn't have, but there's something cooking. But I wouldn't say be discouraged that you won't get in just because you don't have a publication. So try. Again, it depends on who you are competing with that year, how many people are in the pool for the position, how many positions are available, and then what other strengths do you have, because you might not have publications, but you outshine a lot of other candidates in some other areas, and that will stand you out. So don't be discouraged, just apply, but find a way to, if you have something coming, then find a way to show that it's coming soon. So that puts you in even better stead. So be as competitive as possible. The other question was about finding supervisors and sending cold emails. I'll take them together. So yeah, maybe let me start with the cold email one. It's difficult. Again, Oxford professors are very busy. And the only thing you can do is to keep trying. Depending on your department, like for those that are in the health space, there are close to 5 different departments that could supervise a PhD student. Again, depending on how unique your research area is. So sometimes spread your tentacles to as many professors that are able to supervise you as possible. So I know that in some cases, you're like, oh, I want to work with this particular person. Oh, she's amazing or he's amazing. That is the person I want to supervise me. But again, possibly that person is not taking students that year. That person is too busy or is having some projects that she's not even looking at her mails or his mails. And so they won't respond to you. So I think the most important question is you want to get into Oxford first. Remember that all you need is a primary supervisor. If you were hoping to have someone else supervise you, there's a chance that that person can still be your secondary supervisor, but at least you need one person to say, yes, I'll be his primary supervisor. So don't just chase one person and say, oh yeah, it must be this person. And if that person is not responding, you just give up that it's gone. So spread your tentacles wide, apply as much as possible to supervisors, of course, that can supervise you based on your research area. So it's important you go to, again, depending on your specialty, go to the department website, or if you are doing a program, or if you are the kind of person who your project can be housed by multiple departments, then go to all the departments that you think you can do a DPhil in and look at the website. There's always a list of professors and academics in each department's website. Go through their profiles, the kind of research they've done, make a long list of all the people you think that you would be happy to work with, or we're happy to have them supervise you since your interests and research areas align, and send them emails. Yes, you might have your preferred person. I, for one, during my time, I had one person I wanted to, but there were delays on getting a positive response, and a different person said yes. But when the person that I wanted now said yes, I just told the other person, oh, look, I've heard, like I mentioned, I applied around and this other person has said yes. And he's like, please go on with the other person. So don't put all your eggs in one basket. But I think the main thing that's important here is, how do you email these people? See, these guys are very busy. They're going to get a lot of emails from students who want to come into Oxford. You have to stand out. Now, what stands you out? Don't just send an email. Hello, my name is whatever, and I'm a master's student. I finished from so school. I want you to supervise me. I'll be happy if you let me know if you're interested. They're going to get like 50 of that. So what's going to make them respond to yours? But imagine a candidate who has gone to check the person's profile, understands that their research aligns, now sends that email, but frames it more as if it's not just an email, but a cover letter, not too long because they may not have time, but picks all the key things that already show this person that, hey, this guide whose email you are reading, your interests align. From the email, you can already see that your interests align, and the young person has sent a CV that already also shows. Now, the person doesn't need to ask, oh, I'm happy to send my CV. No, you attached your CV to that very first email you sent to the person, and he goes through your CV. He sees all the qualification, publications, whatever. He's already getting interested and impressed. Then if you want to go a step further, which I would say I did, and I know some people have advised to do the same, and they made it, look, you, of course, when you want to do a DPhil, you have an idea of what you want to research. It might never be your final idea, but at least you're thinking of something. Look at that supervisor that you really want to work with and draft a 1 or 2 page proposal. It doesn't need to be detailed, but something that shows the person that, look, you're already serious, you're thinking ahead. So imagine this professor gets 50 emails, but 2 candidates sent their CVs, and one of the other candidates sent a CV and a proposal. Like, just see my thought process. You don't need to be told who they will reply to in that whole crowd. So the idea is not just to send out cold emails. Yes, somehow, except you've met these guys at conferences or on Twitter or LinkedIn, it has to start with cold emails. I did it myself. I never knew my supervisor until I sent those emails. But yes, just like what I advised you is what I did. There was a CV, there was the email was like a cover letter, and there's a small proposal. And in my case, it was funny because then I was still learning. I hadn't understood how to align research methods with what I was sending. So I sent a beautiful topic, but I didn't check the research methods that aligned with the supervisor's interest. And she was like, hey, if you want me to supervise you, I don't know anything about that research method. And I quickly said, well, I'm happy to work with your methods, but this is the topic I want to work on. And we got going, possibly because some of the other things worked out. Again, there's always an element of luck on it. So I would say it's competition even at the level of cold emails. I know it's funny, but take it that way that, I want my cold email to stand out so that it's your email that is looked at twice and replied. Otherwise, they are very busy people. The last thing would be, okay, you asked about someone who wants to do like a PhD in public policy and doesn't have research experience. Well, I would say apply. The first good thing is that you've already acknowledged this deficiency. Provided it's not a deficiency that disqualifies you from getting admitted. If you meet every other qualification to get into Oxford, knowing that deficiency already, even before you get in, you can start doing some online courses or watching whatever, YouTube videos or any other resources that can begin to bring you up to speed with some of the skills. And once you come into Oxford, there are a lot of resources available, different modules, both from your department and different other departments, even the university. You can do some courses online that meet your interest. So what I'd say is apply, provided you know where you want to strengthen yourself in. Before you come in, start working on that. Once you come in within your first year, especially if you're a DPhil, discuss with your supervisors on what those research gaps are, and then use that first year period particularly to take necessary courses that are going to ground you in the areas that you need to go forward, and you'll be fine. So I don't see any reason why you shouldn't apply if you are such a person, provided, like I said, you have ticked all the boxes for admission. Because if that maybe a certain research skill is required as one of the qualifications to get into the program and you don't have it, then of course you won't get into the master. So I think that into the PhD. So I think that has addressed the questions. Thank you. I hope I didn't miss anything, Uche.
Thank you. Thank you. That was very comprehensive. And I believe anyone who wanted all that information must have gained from that. At this point, I would like us to wind down. I'd like to thank all our panelists. Thank you for sparing your very precious time to come and give back to our African community by providing this information to prospective applicants. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Cliff. Thank you, Mwangi. Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Moshood. Thank you, Patricia. And now I will hand over to Uchenna.
I think you probably handed over to the wrong person. We need to be handing over to Ruth, who will end up winding down the session. Ruth, over to you.
All right. Thank you everyone. Thank you our amazing moderators, Uchenna and Anita. Thank you our panelists. Thank you Chimwemwe in the background helping us with the technical expertise. Just to summarize about the mentorship program, I see questions are still popping about that. I thought I made it clear, but it seems like it wasn't clear. Just to summarize that, the deadline for application is this coming Thursday, so 2nd November. We will be sending feedback on whether you've been accepted or not accepted next week. And then those that have been accepted will get follow-up emails. And just to emphasize again, if you don't get accepted to the mentorship program, it doesn't mean that you don't qualify to Oxford. It just means that we do not have the resources to take you in. So please submit applications to Oxford and try to find a way of paying the application application fees. And then for those that registered for this scholarship info session, we will be sending step-by-step guides on applying to Oxford via emails. You should be able to get that soon. What else am I forgetting? Nothing. All right. So thank you everyone for joining the call, and I hope you picked one or two things from this session, and I hope that we have demystified the application process and shown you that it's possible to actually get admitted to Oxford and other Ivy League schools. So please shoot your shot, go for those scholarship applications, go for those degrees. Do not hold back, do not be fearful, just apply. And what's the worst that can happen? I mean, if they say no, you still try again until you get in, right? Even if you don't get into Oxford, you can still get into Harvard, you can still get into Cambridge. So don't let anything limit you. Try as much as possible to go for what you want. And that is what we as a society are trying to do here in Oxford. yeah, and that's it from me. Just as a face for the Africa Society at the University of Oxford. All right, thank you. Bye.
Have a good night, everyone.